I'm so very grateful for not only our panelists here today, which you will meet shortly, but for everyone taking the time and joining us today. We know this is such a difficult time for so many people, tens, hundreds of thousands, nationally, globally. And when the pandemic hit, the entertainment industry was hit really hard when productions halted, live events, programming. So what we wanted to do, the reason that we created this webinar series very quickly was because so many, of course, were furloughed, laid off, or even if not, there's so much uncertainty and there's so much anxiety in what is happening right now, both with the health pandemic and social justice issues, fires happening. This is a tough time. And so what we wanted to do at MPTF, as most of you know, or if not, you will now, we are nearly a 100-year-old organization aimed at taking care of our own, founded by Mary Pickford and other pioneers in the industry. So today we are kicking off a webinar series to provide a non-financial resource. And the reason I say non-financial is because there's a wonderful fund, which we can put in the chat, that's being administered by the Actors Fund for people out of work. And I won't speak to their eligibility because I don't know exactly the terms, but we not only provide financial assistance, but we very much believe in providing referral assistance, one-on-one personal care, and mental health and emotional wellness, as you'll hear from our experts today, is such an important part, and we are hoping to give long-term tools through this webinar series. So today our focus is on emotional well-being, mental health, and you're going to hear from some incredible experts. We're all really excited to have not only MPTF staff, but a very special guest as well, which our moderator will introduce. So without further ado, I would like to jump off because you're here to hear the experts, and our moderator, apologies, you know, live TV, I have children. Our moderator is our Chief Innovation Officer, Dr. Scott Kaiser. Scott Kaiser is a practicing geriatrician. He leads efforts to improve population health and well-being through social and community-based interventions. He has a clinical focus on brain health. He serves as director of the Geriatric Cognitive Health at the Pacific Brain Health Center, where he provides specialty geriatric care. He's an adjunct faculty member at the USC Leonard Davis School of Gerontology. And as a Bruin, I'm very happy to announce that because we love everyone. So there's no partisan, there's no issues here. And Dr. Kaiser just continues to be engaged in teaching, program development, community outreach, research. He's an incredible father, he's an incredible mentor, and as you'll see, he's an incredible moderator. So I'd like to thank and welcome our moderator, Dr. Scott Kaiser.
And thank you, Courtney. And before you go, so this is the first of a series of events. That's right?
Yes, Scott, thank you so much. Yes, I wanted to get to you so quickly. So yes, to everyone out there, we will be sending out dates. We're finalizing dates. We are going to have 2 more webinars, likely at the end of October, early November. We want to give people time to take advantage of the resources you'll learn today, but we're going to touch upon topics like financial literacy, caregiving, both for elderly. A lot of people are caregiving for their parents, grandparents, and then also around children and caring for dealing with all the issues that are coming with homeschooling and navigating those waters, as well as volunteering, because one thing that really feeds your soul is being of service, even when it's hard for you. We've seen that. We have incredible volunteers. So yes, we'll be touching on 4 more topics within 2 webinars with some very special guests. And thank you so much for bringing that up. And we will keep everyone on this list. You will get that information as soon as this event is over. And please The only other thing I ask is be an advocate for your peers. Share this information. We're trying our hardest to reach as many people in need, struggling, out of work, in work, uncertain, as we can. So we thank you in advance for your help, and thank you, Scott, for reminding me of that detail.
Yeah, no, thank you, because we want to get the word out. We want to make sure that everybody knows about this great resource. And I'm sure we won't get to everything today. So this is just the beginning. But
Exactly. And I will say, please, everyone, if you can, watch your chat, because as people speak of things, we're going to be providing resources, articles, guided meditations, a really wonderful app from Thrive, a new Zip app from Thrive. So and you can also, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, you can post some questions that we will be looking at. We have a lot to cover.
Yep.
So if we don't get to those, maybe we can get to them in a post-event follow-up.
Absolutely. Yep. We got a Q&A box, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. And just thank you again, Courtney, for pulling this together and getting us all on this. And I'd say, yeah, without further ado, I'll introduce our panelists. Actually, before I do that, as Courtney was saying, this is an organization that's really about taking care of our own. Our mission is clear. We support members of the entertainment industry community in living and aging well, and in helping each other in times of need. And I just want to pause on that last part there, helping each other in times of need. I mean, if this weren't it, I don't know what we're waiting for. This is a time of tremendous need. And it's just been incredible to see the way industry members have stepped up to help each other. This is really an incredible community. And I'm glad that we'll be able to share some of the resources available through MPTF and beyond today. And, in my role as a physician, I spend a lot of time supporting patients and how they can do that, living and aging well, exactly that other part of the mission, living and aging well. And one of the first rules of this is that, when there's a drop in cabin pressure, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first, even before assisting others. And I think that's really what we're here to talk about today, is self-care, mental health, mental well-being, but again, really about how you can start by caring for yourself, that no matter how negative things might seem in the world, when the world literally feels like it's on fire, and the first thing we have to do is begin within, making changes within ourselves. Otherwise, we're not going to go get anywhere. And we have some incredible people here today who can give us some guidance on how to do that. But also say it's really needed right now. A recent CDC survey showed that close to 1 in 3, close to a third of Americans are reporting significant symptoms of anxiety or depression. This is since COVID. Close to a third of Americans now reporting symptoms of anxiety or depression. And with that, 1 in 10 adults have started or increased abuse of drugs and alcohol in this time. And this last statistic is really just so awful to know, and even to just say out loud. Let's say that 1 in 4 young adults have seriously considered suicide in the last month. And I'm sure our panelists will share resources for anybody who's in that awful situation, or knows anybody in that awful situation. But we have the COVID crisis and so many other crises, and really a mental health crisis right on its heels. They're closely related. As Courtney mentioned, we've got a lot of turmoil in the industry, and I know that's why many of you are here today. So that's why we're here, to talk to you about how we can begin by healing ourselves, what kind of resources are out there for us. So we'll be guided today by Jennifer George, who is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's the Director of Community Social Services at MPTF. The full bios, I believe, for our panelists are in the invites. and will be in the ongoing communication. So I'll just keep it brief and just say we are really lucky to have someone who has been with MPTF for over 14 years, who really knows, has been just grappling on the front lines with people's acute needs and knows every resource available. Is just awesome person to have with us today. And then likewise, Debi Conocenti, who is our manager of employee wellness at MPTF, which really is just sort of the beginning of the many, many ways she makes an impact. And I think we'll hear more about this today. And this comes on the heels of a long career in corporate health and wellness. So really just, it's an amazing resource that we have somebody who knows so much about health and well-being and how we can begin our self-care with us today. And then momentarily, we'll be joined by Agapi Stassinopoulos. I kind of wanted to wait till she was here to see if I pronounced that properly, but so Agapi will be here in a moment, and she is also a wellness self-care expert. She works with Thrive Global, a company founded by her sister, Ariana Huffington, and is really focused on helping change the way we work and live through that, and is a resource to Fortune 500 companies, and just really incredible that she's taking her time to be with us today. She's the author of a new book, Wake Up to the Joy of You, 52 Meditations and Practices for a Calmer, Happier Life. And she's gonna share lots of tools with us today. So now, without further ado, let's just get into it. Jennifer, Debi, can we just begin big picture, a little reflection on kind of the state of the world and you know, how you're advising people who are coming to you in such distress? Maybe Jennifer, since you are on the front lines, you might set us off.
Sure. I think what we're seeing, you know, as Courtney alluded to, you know, it's not just COVID-19 that's impacting us, but it's everything that we're experiencing in society and in our communities at a local level and in our family systems. And so what we've really been seeing is just this real feeling of uncertainty, of fear, of anxiety, not knowing what's going to come next, and people trying to make sense of it and grapple with the new reality. You know, we've been using this term, the new normal, and not everybody quite knows what that is just yet. You know, what happens when everything you've planned for sort of takes this new turn and trajectory. And so a lot of the work that we've been doing here at MPTF is on an individual basis and on a family basis, really trying to understand from a very person-centered approach, because everybody's situation is different. Not everybody's in the same circumstances. And although we may be experiencing similar things in society, the impact that has on everybody is very, very individualized. So really being present and hearing people's stories and circumstances, and starting to provide support and help. And you would be surprised, just being able to sort of bear witness to someone else's suffering and their struggles goes a long way. And then we're able to provide very concrete resources to support them.
And Debi, how about from your perspective? You're there on the front lines as well. I think we'll talk a little bit more later about even some new roles you've taken on since COVID, really in the trenches. But how are you supporting people and supporting yourself amidst kind of the craziness of all this?
Yeah, so I was reading through some of the questions from the participants and the audience, and what seems to be the overall theme when I speak to people these days is that people feel out of control. They feel like prior to pandemic they had techniques and ways of being able to handle their stress, and they are at a point now where they just can't kind of go to the next step or find help for themselves or seek help inside. And I actually coined a term over the weekend called pandemic fatigue, because what I've noticed is that people, including myself and including my coworkers, are getting to the point where everything just sort of feels hopeless, or confusing. People don't know what their next steps are. They don't know when they're going to be working again. Their tempers are flaring. They're feeling depressed. They want to sleep in. This is not abnormal. So I want you all out there to know that it's very normal to be having these feelings. And there are even PTSD symptoms that people are experiencing. And I know that there are even workshops for people who are on the front lines, infectious disease people, everybody who's really working 24/7 are experiencing PTSD symptoms. So there are things that you can do for it, but the most important thing to know is that it's completely normal. And the way you're feeling is pretty much how everybody's feeling. Even if people have jobs, don't have jobs, there's sort of the lowest common denominator is that we're all in a pandemic. And the best thing that we can do for each other is be compassionate, kind, supportive, loving. And the first person you need to do that for is yourself.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you pointed something out there, Debbie, that when I forgot to mention with those initial CDC statistics is that certain groups like essential workers and people whose industries have been completely disrupted and Black, Latino, and Indigenous populations are also disproportionately impacted by those mental health issues that I noted, in addition to being more impacted by COVID overall. So yeah, I think you're right. There are a lot of people going through it. I wouldn't necessarily agree that it's normal. It's just that where a lot of us are in it, but I would hope that we could do something about it. But I also, as you were talking, Debbie, it made me realize I think of you guys as so much bigger than your roles at MPTF because you have so much influence on people. But I think it would be helpful to know, Jennifer, could you start by telling us specifically what your role is at MPTF? And
Sure.
yeah.
Sure, I'm the Director of Community Social Services here at MPTF. I've been here for just over 14 years. My primary role is the oversight of all programming and services for working age folks. And so what that really looks like is I have a team of social workers who field all sorts of needs and issues that arise from industry members. Oftentimes people come to us during a period of unemployment or underemployment. Sometimes it's a disability, temporary or permanent, or some sort of life transition that they're struggling with, or a mental health condition, substance abuse, and they call our intake line and help starts at that moment that they call. And so my team is really there to assess, sit with, bear witness to, and then provide resources and ongoing support to individuals in the industry as well as their families.
And can you just share a little bit about, give us some examples of some of those resources that you're commonly sharing with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Here at MPTF, we're very fortunate. For a small organization, we have a large breadth of services. So there's a lot of things that we're able to do in-house, whether that's charitable financial assistance. It's already been mentioned that one of the best things that you can do for yourself and your emotional well-being is to be of service to others and to help other people. And so we have various volunteer programs, a fabulous program, Scott, that I know that you can speak more to, called the Daily Call Sheet. We have support for industry members who are trying to figure out what to do with their aging parents, whether there's a need for placement or there's a change in condition or maybe a new diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or some other Alzheimer's related dementia. We really have a full centered whole approach. And so best thing to do, we're a great place to just start. If you have a question, if you have a need, I know I already saw in the chat box that our intake lines have come up. All you have to do is call those lines. We're happy to start the conversation and get you connected. We have partners throughout the community, other industry related partners. We can help you navigate local, state, and federal benefits, whether that's unemployment or permanent or state disability. We're really your your go-to one-stop resource and linkage place.
Yeah, I love that, because you can be, we live this every day and we're kind of know all the ins and outs, but it could be overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of great stuff. That's good, but where do I begin? And so you've got it boiled down to just sort of one call does it all. MPTF should be your first call, and that intake line is posted. The only difference being there are special services for people over 65 and special services for people under 65. So then there's two different intake lines there. That's awesome. Just, I think, as we think about all the kind of, as you said, bearing witness and the things you're seeing and just the weight of everything, what are some things that you do to stay grounded now? Or even on the other side, what are some of the ways you've been feeling strained by all this, and how have you dealt with it? Staying with you for a sec, Jennifer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're an organization that's all about being of service to other people. And, when the industry shut down, the volume of calls that we received were unprecedented. We've already served more people in 6 months than we do in an entire year. And so it was really taxing, because we want to be of help, and we want to pick up the phone immediately and respond to people, within 24 hours. We know people are desperate and they need help now. And so it was really hard for myself and my team to know that that wasn't always going to be possible, but that we would eventually get to everybody that called. And, it's very hard. Nobody really calls us with good news in the social services world. Nobody calls us to tell us a great success. Sometimes that happens, but most people are calling because something's off or something's wrong in their life. And so how do we be those containers for folks that are calling us, and also take care of ourselves at the same time? And that's been challenged as my whole team has gone remote. So a lot of the work has been, how do we continue to create connectiveness and a sense of community and support people who are all now working in their own households, dealing with a whole new set of issues. I love how this started with Courteney and the door, because that's the reality of life. People are still moms and dads and spouses and partners and brothers and sisters. And so it's just reminding ourselves of our humanness, that we're not perfect, giving permission to get frustrated, to feel sad, and then finding ways to support each other to rebuild, and reminding ourselves of our past coping strategies and resiliency, because I think that's really a key here. Everybody has gone through different trials and stressors in their life, and this is a great opportunity to tap back into that and think about the skills and look at it from a place of compassion, and be compassionate with ourselves as we try to go through this experience together and individually.
So within that, are there some specific things you're doing for your self-care that you think are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. And one of the things I've tried to do is stay connected. I talk about it as finding the health, right? I think we have lots of people around us, and we need to stay close to the people that are the healthiest and that are able to uplift us, right? So, tackling and pairing with your friends and your colleagues and people around you that are going to be able to support and lift you, and kind of sort of staying away from some of the normal drama and the people who can be downers in our life and don't necessarily lift us or let us be our best selves. I think that's really a critical time, and just being open, and I think really just being accepting and allowing myself to feel my feelings. I think that's really important. I think we're real quick to put up resistance. There's lots of things that tell us, whether it's the way we were brought up or a cultural background, that we're not allowed to be emotional, that we're not allowed to feel our feelings. So when that comes up for me, I always try to think about sort of the physiological response that I'm feeling, and then question, why am I not allowed to be frustrated in this moment? Why am I not allowed to be sad in this moment? And doing my own work and being more conscious of my own mental health.
Wow. And Debi, I mean, that's right up your alley. Is you spend a lot of your effort trying to help people connect to that positivity and really learn how to be able to safely and comfortably move away from some of those things that aren't doing you any good right now.
Exactly. You can't change what happens around you. There's no certainty in life, but you can change the way that you respond to it. So no matter what happens, whether it's a pandemic or another surprise or another twist in the road, they're always going to be there. So but you can always manage the way you respond to it, and the way that you do that is through, so Jen was talking about self-reflection. I am a big fan of meditation. I think meditation and exercise, I always say if people took a walk and meditated every day, that our healthcare system wouldn't need to be fixed. We wouldn't need it. So I strongly encourage it because of the science behind it. I mean, there's so much research out there that that confirms how important and how helpful mindfulness and meditation is, and it really does help balance your immune system. It balances all the physiological features. It balances everything in your body, and we're going to have a meditation soon with our special guest, and that's going to be she's going to walk us through some tips. I would just,
Agapi's motto is, if you can breathe, you can meditate.
That's right. That's exactly right. And even just taking a deep breath. We actually started before you guys joined us at 11:55 with a collective breath, and it was really, it took about 30 seconds. We took a couple of breaths, but that really makes a difference in your day. You don't have to commit 20 minutes. The longer you do it, the better. But if you can even commit a minute or two to just slowing down, quieting, being mindful, and you will notice that after time with meditation in particular, you will develop a thicker skin or a callus, or things won't bother you as much. You won't feel, you'll feel more impervious to things that are outside forces that you can't control. So I would strongly recommend that you try to kind of find the things that work for you. So for me, like I said, it's exercise, it's taking a walk, it's being with my family and my pets. I know the things that are going to charge me. I know the things that are going to drain me. And I think just being aware of those things and being able to just respond to the moment will be helpful for everyone.
Excellent, excellent. And I see that Agapi's joined us. Before we go to Agapi, I just want to go back to one thing you said, Debi, just now. So, I mean, what you were saying about how we can't necessarily control those things outside of us, but we can control within. I mean, there's so many layers to that.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's true in relationships, and it's true in a lot of aspects of the world. But people are asking me all the time now, like, well, what can I do to boost my immune system? Hey doc, what can I do? And it's really remarkable that the kinds of things you're talking about initiate a whole cascade of physiologic response in our body. I know that's something you work a lot with. So if you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. So, so we need a balance of stress hormones. So when you've all heard of fight or flight. So what happens is, by nature, when we were running from saber-toothed tigers, we would have to have these stress hormones to make us run faster. It's cortisol and adrenaline are the two major hormones that increase when we meet a situation that causes our heart rate to increase and this fight or flight syndrome. But now we don't run from saber-toothed tigers anymore. You're having a stress situation when you're sitting at your desk and you're sort of stuck there. And so what happens is all the hormones, they sort of get out of control, and we don't know what to do with them, and things like anxiety occur. And I think just one tip or one suggestion is to learn how to use your breath. And Agapi's going to talk about that. I'll segue into Agapi if she's ready, because we're going to do some breathing exercises. And it really is physiologically, the breath stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which actually slows the heart rate down. And so every time you just take a deep breath, you'll notice that you will get a message from your heart to your brain that says, okay, everything is okay. This breath is very simple. Try it now. It's just a big breath, and you will just instantly have an overall feeling of well-being. And also physiologically speaking, when you're meditating and exercising, I call this the pillars of health. So it's exercise, overall well-being, sleep, nutrition, and seeing your doctors on a regular basis keeps everything in balance. And as you're exercising and eating right and practicing self-care, everything falls into place and the pillars keep the building up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's great. You just shared a lot. And some people might be feeling like overwhelmed, like, oh, I try meditation, it doesn't work. I can't sit quietly. I need to I know I need to exercise. Thanks a lot. But I just can't. I'm under too much stress or whatever. And so that's why I'm glad that Agapi Stassinopoulos, which I'm hoping I got that, has just joined us. And so Agapi, I think you're muted. I think you're muted, Agapi, but we've been talking. There you go.
How's that?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So I think that's a perfect segue. I had introduced you before, but feel free to introduce yourself along the way, and we can get right into kind of ways that we can deal with all of the tremendous pressure that so many of us are under, and really think about those micro steps and ways we can actually begin to change.
Right, exactly. And Debbie, thank you so much for the segue for this. It's just the way you described it, it is so simple and yet something we all forget, that in our very breath is the key to distressing. I just say that I'm sorry I was running late. I was at a conference doing a guided meditation for a conference that's going on right now called Resilience. And we had 2,000 people that joined, and they were running late. But one of the things that every speaker and everybody focused on is that resilience is really embedded in our DNA, that our strength and our resilience is there. But like everything else, we don't always know how to access it. So we need this momentary awareness that we claim it, and then how we access it is, for me, I will tell you, my friends, it's very, very simple. I have to disconnect and pattern interrupt, what I call. So for example, if I'm in my computer and if I'm in a Zoom call and then in another Zoom call, and then the bell rings and then somebody's asking you for something, and then you get an email, and then suddenly you're on overload. Anybody relates to that? That so many things are coming at you. And now these days, you can't go very far, because we all know that we are more isolated and confined. But imagine if at that very moment, you literally shifted from where you are, absolutely movement. And right now, let me just show you how simple that is. Take your arms and just raise them above your head. Already we're changing the physiology. Stretch your right arm and stretch your left arm and start to make a sound like ah. And as you make a very soft ah, you absolutely open up your arms. And let's just take one more deep breath and raise your arms and make a sound like ah. Already we change something in our brain. Now, if you take your fingers and drop your jaw, this is where we lock everything. We lock everything because we are afraid, we are anxious, we don't want to say, we don't want to scream sometimes. Have you ever felt, I want to scream, and you go, and that locks up the nervous system. So you relax the jaw. And now relax your shoulders. Yes, that's beautiful, Scott, you're doing beautifully. And take your fingers and just very gently give a message and just run your fingers all the way down to the jawline. Beautiful. And start to make a soft sound. And then you start to allow your breath to come in. Your breath is already coming in, but you're turning your consciousness into your breath. And right now, let us breathe into the count of 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold the breath. 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale with a soft sound. 4, 3, 2, 1. We just did one conscious breath, monitoring it, elongating the inhalation, holding it for a second, and elongating the exhalation. Right here, I am sitting at my sister's Ariana Huffington's desk, and I see a sign in front of me. Take 3 breaths between the stimulus and the response. It actually has it framed on the wall where she can see it. Take 3 breaths between the stimulus and the response. Please write that down, because 3 breaths, 3 conscious breaths, my friends, can reset the brain. So there is a micro step, Scott, that you asked about micro steps. Start your day with 3 or 4 conscious breaths. I had a morning where everything was happening. You know, the gate was stuck, the door was ringing, the emails were coming, the conference before that was running late, you know, and the morning was like this. And then I just said, Agapi. So I talked to myself. You have to talk to yourself. Do you know that is a very powerful thing? You look at it and say, Agapi, stop. Take a breath, have some water. Have a lot of water, recenter. I have taught myself, you know, it is like we have to take dominion of the part that just runs wild and gets overwhelmed, because who is doing this overwhelm?
Yeah. And Agapi, it's a, you know, you mentioned something that I don't think has come up in any of our other webinars, is that the grinding of the teeth, the clenching of the jaw. I just read an incredible article. Dentists are seeing more fractured teeth than they ever see. Yeah, now, because people are just grinding. And there's a whole field of psychotherapy called IBP, Integrative Body Psychotherapy, which was started by a dentist who realized that he just had patients coming in, just clenching. But right now we're seeing an epidemic of fractured teeth because people really are just clamped down.
And also, what my sister calls is the corona insomnia. The other thing where you cannot sleep. But I wanted to tell you, before I forget, I just saw a chat, somebody on the chat actually, Scott, who just actually said her jaw is so tight. And that is, I just want to congratulate you for the awareness. Because most people don't even know their jaw is tight. They just live like that. You know, it's like, do you ever feel like your shoulders get so tight? And I always start my meditations, you can do it right now with me, just relaxing the shoulders. That's why I raise the arms, you know. We get stiff and the body locks down. When the body locks down, the mind is, the brain is going, as Debbie said, fight or flight. I'm in danger. Well, there is a lot of challenges, but there is no tiger running behind us, you know? So and if you change the physiology, you'll start to change the mindset. I'm not saying it's easy, my friends, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I want to invite you all to send me an email at agapi@unbindingtheheart.com. We will put it up in the chat. And I will send you, I have 33 guided meditations. I give out 9 as a gift. And they are shifting from, I call it from worry to calmness, from discouragement to trust. You got to give antidotes to the part that is struggling. And you got to give compassion to that part. You can't say, oh, this is terrible, I'm so afraid, I'm judging the hell out of myself. We are judging constantly. I judge myself, and I consider myself semi-enlightened, Scott. I've done so much inner work and I still go, oh my God, I'm judging Agapi.
Yeah. So Agapi, a question came in just to clarify something. So first of all, I see your website, agapeunbindingtheheart.com.
That's my email for people to
Oh, sorry,
actually,
email. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So there you go. Shoot an email. But so somebody wanted to make sure they got those words right, and maybe you could unpack it a little bit about what your sister has right over her desk. I think it was
Absolutely.
between the take 3 breaths.
I'm just gonna get up and show the sign.
Okay. And it's between the stimulus and the response, I believe. So,
While she's getting that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Debbie.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
Let's see the sign, Agapi. Take 3 breaths between the stimulus and the response.
Excellent.
Courtney can write it down. She also has another one. Let me see.
And while she's getting that, Debbie, you had a reaction to some of what we've been talking about.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about physiology, and I just wanted to, again, just go back to kind of the health of the whole body. So it's, mental and spiritual and physical health. And so when we're talking about exercise, and Scott, you mentioned, oh, it's so hard to get up and do it. It doesn't have to be a hard workout. It doesn't have to be an intense workout. You can simply walk around. Just take a walk. You can even be inside your home if you don't want to go out. But just moving the body, getting the heart beating, balances all the hormones and your sugar levels. And so it's something that's very, very simple, just like breathing. So bottom line is we're meant to walk and we're meant to breathe. We just forget to do it sometimes.
Thank you, Debbie. This is so wonderful. Can I just for a moment be outrageous and show you what I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, go for it. If I'm stressed and I'm feeling overwhelmed, here I am in front of my desk and I go. 30 seconds. Now I'm wearing my fabulous tennis shoes, right? I'm not wearing shoes or anything. But honestly, you start to shake up everything inside. Believe me, if you are feeling stressed, angry, as if you're feeling like, usually when I do events, I have everybody dancing. Mm-hmm. And my favorite question to ask people is, what music are you playing? Right, Scott and Debbie?
That's right.
What music are you playing? I'm playing, oh my God, I have playlist and playlist, but I have so many songs that I start to dance. From Lady Gaga to Katy Perry to Shania Twain to Ricky Martin, La Vida Loca. And I decide and I say, boy, I need music. And then of course I Mozart or Beethoven. At our home, Alexa is very alive. And my niece is teaching me about she lives with us at the moment. And I find that music, I'll get up. I don't know how many of you ever get up and you go, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening another day.
Right.
I go, okay, I got to bring up my enthusiasm. I'm writing a book now and I love to send everybody. I have a prayer that I wrote. It's called Rekindle Your Enthusiasm. And it's a prayer of, listen, God didn't say, it's okay to bring God in this, right? Because honestly, if we were alone and without this breath of life, we would be dead. And I call God, whatever you call your God, larger than Agapi, larger than Scott, larger than Debbie. There is a spirit that breathes us all, which we call God. And I say, well, God didn't say, well, I breathed you yesterday, and today I'm not sure I'm going to breathe you. Like that life force is carrying us on a daily basis. So we have to bring our personalities and our egos and our physical existence to this day to align with that. and I'm very strategic with myself. I talk to Agapi all the time, and
Well, that's a good point, Agapi, is bringing yourself into each day, and remember that you are not your thoughts, right? Because thoughts are something that come around, they're not part of our soul, they're part of our brain. And our brain's job is to think and to solve problems and to work through solutions.
Exactly.
And so it's constantly going on overdrive. And
Yeah.
so, but we have the ability to stop our thoughts, watch our thoughts, and know that we're not our thoughts.
And also with that, to realize that in a way, we are all a masterpiece and a work in progress. And one of the greatest things that I've learned, and it's in my book, Wake Up to the Joy of You. It's a chapter that I call 4 magic words. Can you help me? So, for example, if I am down and if I'm struggling with something, I have my little inner circle, and now Courtney and Debbie and Scott, I want to, and our panelists here, I want to have you as part of my inner circle, because these people here, they have wisdom, they have knowledge. So what if I was having a hard day and I call Scott and I said, Scott, this is what's going on. Can you help me? Or what if I had a friend who called me the other day. I was telling our panelist, and I said, she was freaking out. She has 3 kids. They're being schooled at home. Her husband lost his job. She's the breadwinner, and she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's mentoring the kids. The husband is helping, but she felt like she really was going to lose it, and she started to cry. So I said to her, FaceTime me. I need to see your face. We're not just going to talk. FaceTime me. I see your face. And she was crying. And I said, let me go out in the garden. Come to the garden with me. She was in an apartment, in a 1-bedroom apartment. And they're suffocating. And I said, let's breathe. Let's find solutions. Can your neighbor, who she's very close to, take one of the kids and school and be with her kids? And we started to think. I said, can you hug your husband? Can you bring some love into it? Can you, have a fabulous coffee that you love and sit down for a minute and take a moment? And we breathed and we talked and I said to her, and call me tomorrow, because I want to be here for you. So that, my friends, is reach out, ask for help, give help.
Well, we know that social isolation actually, and this particularly feeling lonely, that sense of feeling alone, that you have nobody you can turn to, is really bad for your health. It's comparable in terms of its impact on your health to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? And that's why we really focus on it. But the problem is, once you're feeling lonely, it can be really hard to find your way out, because you don't necessarily have that way to connect. So, but as you were talking through problem solving with your friend, I was looking to Jennifer, and I'd love to hear from Jennifer, because that's what the MPTF social workers do, is they become that ally.
Yes.
Who can help problem solve through these things. So that's what you and your teams are doing every day, Jennifer. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think, the suggestions from both Debbie and Agape about different coping mechanisms and different ways of relieving stress are critical. I think it's also important to remind everybody, and I think we take this for granted, that, people who work in the industry are incredibly creative beings. And so when they're not getting up and going to work and being able to utilize themselves in those ways, I think that can be stifling. So whether that's through writing or, when you think of folks that, build things all days and work on sets and erect things, how do they find similar coping mechanisms that can also allow for those outlets? We can all go in, and grab a pillow and scream into it, and it's a very cathartic experience. And so, when we think about resources and referrals, part of our assessment as clinicians is to understand and to try to assess, is this something that, given the individual's ability to cope and their own skill set, is this something they're going to be able to manage on their own? And we give them suggestions, and we can link them to different support groups and resources and normalize the experience. But sometimes it's beyond, right? It's beyond something that they can get themselves out of. And that's when we have to upgrade our intervention, so to speak. And so sometimes that is through the provision of a resource to a mental health provider, someone they can sit with one-on-one. And I know that here in the United States, there's so much stigma about, as Agapi was saying, just even acknowledging that someone needs help, nonetheless pursuing it and actually going to a therapist or joining a support group or verbalizing that in an outward way. So a lot of the work that my team is doing is trying to normalize that experience, demystify it, and provide resources and really educate people as to what that process is like, and trying to empower them to take control over their emotional wellness, and helping them to understand that this is connected to everything, whether they have concerns about their finances, their job, their physical health, child rearing, what they're going to make for dinner this night, where they're going to get food. All of these things are so interconnected that we also have to recognize that sometimes we have to take care of the concrete things, the fact that people are hungry, they need to pay their rent, and then we can move on to some of these bigger issues of how can they cope with the stressors in their life, because it's real. People are struggling. They need food, they need to be able to pay their bills, and how do we help them do that? And there's lots of resources to help with that, and then we can have these other discussions about emotional well-being and get them connected to service. So it's knowing where that line is.
Yeah, Jennifer, that really brings to light a question I saw pop up here. And I would encourage you in our last 10 minutes here, please put some questions in so that we can do some quick responses to these questions. But how about this one? Everyone's saying we're in this together. I don't feel that way when I see people who don't have to struggle like I do, yet they're the ones complaining the loudest. How do I deal with these feelings? Feeling less than, feeling anger, jealousy, resentment. And before we all give that a quick answer, because obviously we could have spent the whole hour on those feelings too, but before we dive into that, I would just say, Jennifer, thank you for reminding us a huge take home from today. All stigma around mental health, that crap's got to go out the window, and that the strongest thing you can do is reach out and ask for help. And it's been really incredible in this time to see people who we really look at as super strong, the people who look like they have it all, who have shown us and that it is a great thing to do, to reach out and ask for help. And that's what MPTF is all about, is creating that environment where we can help each other. But what would you say to this person who's just not feeling the love of this we're all in it together thing? They're feeling all alone.
Well, if I may respond, I have cried a lot during this time. I mean, I found myself crying, and I feel very blessed because I have my family, and we have this beautiful work that we're doing, and we thrive, called A Lot Forward. And I was leading meditations and everything, but I wrote, actually, it's in the Thrive Global. I actually wrote a piece, which I would love to send to all of you, about how the importance of being authentic with your emotions. So if you're angry, if you are feeling despairing, if you're feeling hopeless, it's okay. I mean, it's really okay, first of all. And I have learned that one of the greatest things is not to judge myself for my emotional state. And that lack of forgiveness at this time, so forgive myself for feeling so upset, finding safe places to emote. Like I've cried with my sister or my nieces or my good friends. They would call me on FaceTime and I would start to cry. And that is, as Courteney said, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and find that. And then once you have that bridge between your state and between your loving yourself and compassion for yourself, then you can start to reach out. And as Scott said, no stigma. I think tears and crying and being upset is so normal. And if somebody and a friend says to you, I mean, I've had one of my best friends who is a therapist.
Right.
And she texts me so often. She says, "I'm blue. I'm feeling blue.
Yes.
My granddaughters are not going to school. They're zooming at
And
their house."
copy before you go on with that story too, because Debbie, I know, I saw her taking notes, and I know she was responding to what she's saying. Not everybody's gonna leave here and start meditating all the time or whatever, but I think that I know that Debbie really works to get that out to everybody she comes in contact, things that she's learned through meditation practice about kind of how you can acknowledge and not be taken down by some of these negative feelings.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Agapi was saying about not judging yourself for these feelings and emotions because you're human. So these negative emotions, jealousies, envy, things, you know, that keep coming up over and over again in life are not going to stop. Even if you meditate all day, they're still there. Don't believe the people who tell you that they're so enlightened never have these feelings. They do. Because they're human. And if they really are that enlightened, they'll tell you, I also have these negative feelings and I get jealous and I get angry. So the best thing to do is to just notice. And the best way to notice is to just sit still. So when you sit still, you can watch your thoughts and you can notice. And what Agapi said, don't judge them. They're your thoughts and they come around and it's not your fault. There they are, those thoughts again. So you can just kind of recognize them and then just move on to a healthier activity, something that makes you happy, even if it's just for a moment. That little minor shift will make a big difference. And I just wanted to say, probably in closing, because we're running out of time, this particular seminar was for assistants. And assistants are the lifeblood of any organization. So whether it's television and film, or MPTF, or wherever you are, wherever you work, if you're assisting in an assisted living, an assistant is so purposeful. And so if you're not working in your assistant's job, and your paid assistant's job, that is going to feel profoundly different from your normal everyday activity. So maybe find a purpose that you can use your assistance in another way.
Yes.
And that's great stuff. And I see, you know, Olivia had asked, will this be available to stream after? She'd like to share it with her co-workers, which is just wonderful to hear. That is great stuff. And we have another sign coming from Agapi. And I see Courtney's here because I think this is we've just barely begun to scratch the surface. We didn't even talk about some of the basics about sleep. We talked about how important sleep is. You know, I could go on and on about diet, exercise, sleep, social connection, sense of purpose, all these pillars of health and well-being that we alluded to. And I think one of the reasons I'm hoping Courtney is here is we have access to resources now through Agapi and through Thrive Global that are like, you know, Fortune 500 companies are signing up big to get, because they really work. Like all this stuff could sound overwhelming, but you can tap into this stuff right on your phone, and that's going to be available for everybody. And so looking at Agapi and Courtney to take us home with where we go from here.
Zip is an app, Thrive Zip is an app that Courtney is going to be sharing with you. We have many micro steps, we have content, we have stories of people who have overcome tremendous adversities, have lost weight, are healthier, reverse diabetes, blood pressure. And so that's a big thing. And Agapi at Unbinding the Heart is where I can send you my meditations. Please log in. Courtney will send you Thrive Global for more content. And I mean, for me, my last words are actually, love yourself through it all. Smile even in the midst of your adversities. Reach out for help. Be compassionate, and draw on the resources that Courtney is going to be sharing. And most of all, take deep, long breaths and move and dance. And don't forget Agapi's famous dance. I'm going to close with this. And you go, I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay. And you shake it up. And that shaking up, I mean, I'm demonstrating it's in the midst of the greatest adversity. It will show you ways of solutions. Can I just share with you in both my books, Wake Up to the Joy of You and Unbinding the Heart, I share about my father who survived the concentration camps and my mother who fought the Second World War. And I tell the stories of tremendous challenges, as you can imagine. So, as Debbie said, I have worked the spiritual path, and I am on a very extraordinary level of spirituality because I love God and I love the awareness of the soul. But I have a human part, and I loved what Debbie said. That human part cries and gets angry and gets jealous and upset and feels it's not fair. And spirituality is not doing a bypass. It's embracing that part. Spirituality means loving that part and honoring it in its own way and giving it solutions to shift. So just know we are here for you. Reach out, and blessings from me with a deep, long breath of thank you.
Jennifer, do you have a quick last word before I know we're over time, but I see Courtney chomping a bit. One last word for everybody.
Yeah, I think, I just want to remind everybody that MPTF is here to be of service and to help. And all you have to do is find the courage to make that call, regardless of what the need is. Give us a chance to try to meet it. And we're happy to be here for you, and you have our numbers.
Awesome. Awesome. And the numbers are in the chat, and mptf.com for all your.
I was just going to say, Scott, first of all, thank you to Scott, to all of our panelists, to Agapi. So lovely. I mean, we just met, and I feel like I must have known Agapi in a past life. And it's hard to smile. I think it's really hard to smile in times of tragedy, but even if you're not feeling it and you do it, it changes your science and it changes everything. And dance, I'm a big believer of shaking those organs around and getting up and dancing. But please, everyone, look out for an email. We're going to make this email come from my name so you recognize it. It won't be like at an info. We will provide all the resources that we put in the chat, this incredible app through ThriveZip, Agapi's guided meditations. We'll share the email. We'll share our intake lines. We'll give you everything. And without committing everyone here on the spot, I feel like this is part one, and maybe the sequel ends with, again, emotional wellness and mental health, because while we're going to dive into some deeper topics, financial, caregiving, volunteering, being of service, I think it's, and career path and help with some resumes and just things to navigate those more granular topics. What a great bookend to close out again, because everyone on this panel has so much advice and wisdom and compassion and empathy. So we're going to figure that out, and we're going to do this again because this has been so fantastic. So thank you all so much for showing up, both as panelists and attendees.
Thank you, Scott, for moderating it so beautifully. I'm going to jump off. I've got another webinar starting in 5 minutes ago.
No, they need you. Thank you. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you, Courtney. What a pleasure. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Have a drink or dinner all together one night, or coffee or something physical. I can't wait.
We can't wait. We can't wait to all get together. I'm a hugger. I'm missing it so much. So I'll just hug myself right now. We'll hug. This is for everyone. Thank you all.
So long.
Much love.